This is part 2 of the SFSP sponsor application. At the end of the previous recording, I was talking about the estimated average daily participation, and you can note here that I have entered 100 as my estimated average daily participation. You will not be able to put anything on this line. This is for state agency use. And you will simply complete the remainder of that section as it relates to breakfast. Indicate your plan for the receipt and storage of meals. Indicate your plan for storage or disposal of leftover meals. And you have a couple of options here and then a drop down for that one. Indicate your plans for serving meals in inclement weather is also a drop down. And if you have an alternate location and ask you to include an address and information about that alternate location. And of course, if you have any additional comments, you can add those here for us to review. The next part of the site application is the lunch. So for breakfast, I copied from the operation period, and for lunch, I'm going to enter a different date and see how that works. So I'm going to go to calendar, and it has us operating from June 1st to July 23rd. And for this lunch, I'm going to say June 3rd to, let's just do July 20th. Okay. And we're going to keep on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I'm going to click Update Calendar. So for lunch, I'm operating June 3rd through July 20th, 2026. And if I scroll down, you see it's listed here. The selections were made for me. Now scroll back up and please don't forget to click Save and Close. So now we're back to the lunch portion of the site application, and I'm going to refresh from calendar. And it shows me here that lunch is operating from 6/3/2026 through 7/20/2026, 12 days in June and 8 days in July. My meal service time here I've entered as noon to 1 p.m. And the meal service method, as I mentioned, we talked about that in the breakfast. You would do the same thing for lunch. Your average daily participation, you will enter it here. If you notice on this maximum number of meals may be served, that's state agency use, and that's based on what you put in your average daily participation. And of course, this estimated average daily participation is what we call the cap. If that changes during your operation, you will need to send in a revision and let us know. And in some instances, we might actually ask for supporting documentation to make those changes. And just as for breakfast, you would complete the remainder of this L section for lunch. Now, Rule Non-Congregate is an entirely different section on the site application. And for the purpose of this video, I'm going to go over a couple of things with you and hopefully provide you with enough information so that you can enter your rural non-congregate sites correctly and we can pull those data from your application to be able to put in Site Finder. So if you choose to do rural non-congregate, it will ask, do you plan to provide rural non-congregate meals at this site? If you select both, that means that you're a hybrid site, that you're planning to operate rural non-congregate as well as provide congregate meals. And of course, if you're doing that, you have to ensure that there is no cross-pollination of the non-congregate meals that you're offering to the and for those students who are getting congregate meals. In this instance, we won't have an issue because we're doing a hybrid, and I will explain to you how that will work. So here, if you choose both, you'll notice that this information here is open for additional information. If you choose yes, this information remains open or will be open for data entry. If you said that you are not doing rural non-congregate, this grays out this entire section but for S13, which is asking if there is a waiver for non-congregate meals due to excessive heat. Are you requesting the site be included? Yes, no, or not applicable. And if you're not doing rural non-congregate, so let me state it this way. If you are doing congregate meal service and you want to be included in the waiver to transition to rural non-congregate on those days where there are excessive heat alerts, you can select yes here. And you will have to upload that waiver request with your application. So that's, again, you're not doing rural non-congregate, you're just doing congregate. If you select no here, all of this grays out and then go down to S13 and answer that question. And you don't have to ask for the waiver if you don't, if it won't be beneficial to you. But of course, it's there if you plan to. So let's go back and select both here in this example. So you have to go to the next question. Do you plan to provide non-congregate meals at this location, at a rural location? And we're going to say yes, because that's one of the requirements for operating rural non-congregate meal service is the site has to be in a rural area. And there is an exception to that. The next item is check the days meals will be distributed. So in this example, we are operating on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So we are going to send meals home on Thursday. So that's the day I'm going to select for the non-congregate portion of my meal service. Will multiple days of meals be provided? Yes, I'm going to provide meals for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. How many calendar days of meals are included? I just said Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so we're going to do 4 here. Which meals are given in bulk? Breakfast, lunch, snack, breakfast, AM snack, lunch, PM snack, supper, or none. We're not doing any bulk distribution. Will meals be provided to parents or guardians? No, we're going to be sending these meals home by kids as they leave our operation. Is the site providing home delivered meals? No. Now, this section, other non congregate meal information, we want you to explain in the greatest detail possible how you are implementing, planning, and organizing your rural non-congregate service. We need to know how meal counts will be taken. If you're offering rural non-congregate service, the meals you offer to those students has to be tied to a child's name, unlike an open or open restricted site where you're just counting eligible students. If you're doing rural non-congregate, you must have that rural non-congregate meal or meals linked to a child's name who received that meal. So the next part of the site application is the non-congregate summer food site locator details. And this will only show up if you're doing rural non-congregate. So I've selected here, we're doing breakfast and lunch. And the schedule name here, let me deselect breakfast and deselect lunch. And I'll go over that with you step by step. So we're going to do breakfast and lunch. And if you notice when I selected breakfast, this section opened up on the application. The schedule name, you'll just indicate the name of that meal service. And the reason for that is there's some sponsors who might, for example, have a rural non-congregate breakfast service during the month of June during summer school. And in July, when summer school has ended, they still want to provide rural non-congregate meals, but the meal service time has changed. Um, Maybe the process for getting meals to students has changed, and that will be a different breakfast schedule name. And this allows us, when we pull information from this section to send to USDA for the site locator, it allows us to distinguish between those two different meal services being offered. So I'm going to name this one Breakfast June. And my only option here is pickup or delivery, and it's really not a pickup. The kids are taking it home, but that's the selection, that's the choice I'm going to make. And it's the same as the physical address that was initially put on the application. It's a fixed location. The site contact person is the same. And we're saying for breakfast, the meal service dates will start June 3rd through 2026 to July 2027. And I'm distributing meals on Wednesday, and they are going to be going home for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And here's my meal service time. On Wednesday, as the kids are getting ready to go home, I'm going to provide them with their breakfast meal for the weekend, for Thursday, Friday, and the weekend. Okay. Now, if I was doing a second breakfast meal service that is different from this one, I will click Add Schedule here, and you'll see that it will add another schedule. So I do not want to do another breakfast schedule. So let's say, even if you did this as a mistake, you can just delete this schedule. The intent for my clicking on Add Schedule was to show you that another screen or another data entry field will drop down. But we're going to delete that. We're only doing one breakfast meal service for this site. Okay. So now, if you recall, I selected breakfast and lunch as my non-congregate meal types. So lunch, I'm going to do lunch June, and pick up. I'm going to do the same thing that I did for breakfast. The same site supervisor. Of course, if this information is different, you have to enter it. And my meal serving dates are 6/3, and I believe I put 7/20 on my application, so I'm going to change that to 7/20. And the meals are going out on Wednesday. Now, if you put information in this carpool lane, I'm sorry, excuse me. If you put information in this comment section, this could very well be pulled and included on the site locator information. We have not included comments in the past, but the information is going to be pulled electronically this year. So if you enter comments here, these are comments that you will want the public to know to better serve them at this particular site. I noticed that I did not put a meal service time. I'm going to do the same thing I did for lunch as I did for breakfast, 2 to 3 p.m. And I'm going to go ahead and save this before I lose my information. Okay. And of course, I have errors. I have a ton of errors because I did not enter information in all required fields. You see those error descriptions. So let's go back down to the lunch rule non-congregate site locator details. And let's just say for grands, I wanted to add a schedule for lunch. So I can do that here. I'm going to do lunch July. And this one, I'm going to say we're going to deliver our meals in July. When I select delivery, this is all grayed out because there is no pickup address. There is no site supervisor name. So that when I'm going to start my delivery, it's going to be 7/2 and let's say 7/6. And maybe, I'm not sure why I would do that, but let's just go with it. Okay, and I am going to be distributing those meals on Tuesday, let's say. And we're going to do it from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Okay. And I'm going to put here, I won't put any comments here. I probably need to because there probably needs to be an explanation for, or some additional information for those parents to know where to go. Again, if you put comments here, this is forward facing for the public to see. And as a state agency, I would want to know, why do you have 2 different days, 2 lunch services for your summer feeding program, one in June and one in July? And that can be easily explained by, you did a different type of meal delivery during the month of July than you did in June, and this will capture that.